Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of One Shot Reviews. Now, the place I normally do my reviews in is currently being used as storage for a family member, so I am stuck in my basement with awful lighting, so just bear with me. It was either film the review down here or not film the review at all, and I have a schedule to keep. So, anyways, this episode, it's kind of a little bit of a different one. It's not a old school movie that I think deserves more attention. It's actually a movie that just came out last year. So, about a week ago, I went to Troma Dance Film Festival at the Mahoning Drive-In in Leeton, Pennsylvania. I have never been to a Troma Dance or film festival really of that kind of caliber before, and it was something else. I was able to meet Lloyd Kaufman, who's a hero of mine in the movie-making world. And I also got to see my favorite Troma movie, which is Class of Nukem High. I was really fighting to stay up at 3 a.m. to finish it, though. I also saw a non-horror movie called The First Turn On, which I'll probably never review, but I really didn't know what was happening because it was so foggy out I couldn't actually see the screen during that movie. But I also saw the Pennsylvania premiere of a movie released in 2020 called #Shakespeare's Shitstorm. As you can guess from that title, it is as Troma can get. It was directed by Lloyd Kaufman, who also did Toxic Avenger, The Class of Nukem High that I mentioned before, Poultrygeist, all kinds of huge classics from the time. Okay, well, that might not be the right word for it. Huge Troma classics. So for the underground, shot-on-video, low-budget, independent filmmaking world, these are classics. In the grand scheme of things, maybe not, but again, I might eventually get to Toxic Avenger one day, or Class of Nukem High, fingers crossed. But today we're here to talk about good old #Shakespeare's Shitstorm. So, this movie is an adaptation, because it's based on a play by William Shakespeare called Tempest, which I have never read or seen a play of it or really anything. It doesn't seem like my cup of tea, but it's basically about a storm that sets a bunch of people adrift onto an island where they're terrorized by someone named Prospero, who's a sorcerer, and that's pretty much all I know about it. So if you want to know more about it, go to someone who's reviewing this who got all of their cards together. But you're here, so I'll just go off my first impressions of this movie. Sorry, I'm stumbling for words here because this movie is just so I don't know if you can describe it. I saw it with my mom, who went with me to Troma Dance, and she described it as a softcore porn. So it's a gory horror comedy that's as Troma can be. And boy, do I recommend it for Troma fans. The movie is one of the hardest things to describe, but I can tell you that it starts off in the most bad taste way possible, with someone committing suicide with a gun to the head and blood splattering on a crying baby. If you don't like the way that sounds, then this is not for you, and Troma is not for you. If you find the comedy in that messed up scene, then Troma might be up your alley. There's not really a plot going on here. It sets you up in Act 1, but after that it just kind of it fizzles out plot-wise, and it's just gore and comedy and a lot of nudity. So, the way it starts out is Prospero, so the same villain or hero, I guess however you want to interpret it, from the Tempest play. He is kind of ostracized from this big pharmaceutical company, and he and his daughter Miranda, they kind of take up refuge in Tromaville in a drug den. And they have a bunch of druggies and prostitutes working for them now. And the pharmaceutical company is run by his sister, Prospero's sister, and then also some very womanizing, drug-addled head of the business who's really just there to talk about how much he wants to do drugs every 5 seconds and get laid every 4 seconds. So, Prospero is played by Lloyd Kaufman, and he also plays a twin sister in just drag, and it is, I gotta say, I'll get to this later, but it's one of my favorite parts of the movie is that Lloyd Kaufman is just front and center. He is like the lead actor in his own movie. And it feels like, even though he has been in a lot of his own movies lately, he's never like the main character. And not only that, but he's like the two main characters in this movie. And that really makes it interesting because he has an energy that just cannot be matched by anyone. He understands his work, he knows what he's doing, and he just spins gold every time he talks. So going on with the plot, the people who are on the boat, like all the big pharmaceutical reps and whatnot, they get adrift on land due to a bunch of whales who took laxatives from Prospero, and they just crap up a storm. So this movie is literally a fountain of crap for like the first 10 minutes. Just spewing out of every orifice. I can't stress how odd that is enough, but it is very Troma-esque, so I just rolled with the punches. It was very entertaining if you enjoy a heavy amount of potty humor. So anyways, they get on land. This is all part of Prospero's plan. They like take refuge in his drug den, and he gives them this like special drug that like gets everyone high. And basically the plot kind of ends there because they like become piles of goo eventually because they're taking this drug that just like destroys their body and melts them from the inside out. Some of them mutate into weird creatures. Others just kind of just gore. It's really hard to explain, and I don't think anyone really can explain it except Lloyd Kaufman. But well, you know what? How about we just get into what's good and what's bad about the movie? Because I think the plot's pretty much done here. For the good, I would say the practical effects are pretty darn good. A lot of movies nowadays aren't doing the practical effects in these scenarios where they did. But they're really like going for as much practical as possible, even more so than their other recent Troma efforts. So I was really glad to see that. It seemed like kind of a return to form in a way. Now, also, like, the creature effects in it to go hand in hand was the gore. They were also really good. It was, like, mutated animals, like, weird body parts attached to them, and just the gore piles. It's all just very well done, and you can see they really put their best foot forward. The budget kind of just, I don't know what the budget was, but it feels bigger than what their previous movies in the last, like, decade have felt like. And that was, again, a very good change of pace, and hopefully is a good sign of things to come. The acting was also like pretty spot on, and sometimes like the comedic timing is very good. A lot of the jokes land from the majority of the actors. And again, Lloyd Kaufman is the best of the bunch just because he's actually, oddly enough, the most toned down in some scenes. Like when he's playing the girl, he is actually a very subdued performance, and compared to everyone else happening on screen, because everyone's dialed up to 11, he's only 10. But again, it's just his acting is top notch, and like I'm glad that this like 70-something-year-old man is still just giving it his all in these movies because it shows and we love it. And also along with that, one interesting thing that I find about these movies is Lloyd Kaufman, like when he makes these Troma movies, they like try to shoot for the lowest common denominator. They want to just the potty humor and bad taste jokes and just piles and piles of crap. But he uses that medium because he knows that's what sells, but he uses it to tell like some hard-hitting stuff in a way. Now whether or not it's not exactly like it's good big topics that they're hitting, like big business and the problem with that, and like drugs in society and what it says about us, and the whole like social justice going on. Like he's telling a lot of like heavy topics in just a easily consumable way that people don't even know like they're like hearing this agenda. Agenda might not be the right word. They don't even hear like they don't even realize that they're like being shown all these like hard-hitting topics because it's just done in such a lowest common denominator way, like a elementary schooler like trying to write a film. But I want to say it's a good thing because he's able to do it in a non-preachy way. It doesn't feel like they're ever talking down to you. They're just like, hey, here are the things I really want to discuss, and how about we talk about them in the funniest way possible? So let's just add like a geyser of crap. And that would really make some Troma movies hit harder. Like with Poultry Guys, which I haven't talked about, but I do plan on talking about, they talk about at one point I mean, the whole movie is based around, like, the fast food and what it says about, like, society regarding that. And then also with Toxic Avenger, they do obviously so much stuff with, like, nuclear waste and fallout and stuff of that nature. And pollution, especially pollution. So they really do tackle a lot of heavy topics in their time. They just do it in a much more non-preachy, very subdued way that makes it so just anyone can just pop in a movie and laugh while also kind of learning and developing their own opinions on the topic. So that, I don't know, maybe that's giving Troma more credit than it's worth, but I really think all of this stuff is intentional. It's really just his way of getting these things out there while also entertaining as many people as he can. The bad. So this is what makes Troma movies very hard to review, because what some people consider bad, others consider like the best part of the film. So things that people might not enjoy is there's so much nudity to the point where it's a porno. I expect that from Troma movies, so I'm totally fine with it. I can see why that would be considered a bad thing though, because it is not as distracting as Return to Nukem High, aka Volume 2, but it's also more than I feel like their movies back like in the 80s and 90s had. Now, along with that, there's so much overacting, which is entirely on purpose, but some of the performances just don't land. I don't really like the lead pharmaceutical rep guy. I don't really see... it's too much overacting to me. And then also... there's so much crap in this movie, like literal crap. So don't eat anything while watching it. I made sure to not eat anything because I had an assumption that hashtag Shakespeare's Shitstorm was going to be a rough one. But honestly, there isn't too many bad things about this movie. I think the effects are done well. The acting is what you expect it to be. Lloyd Kaufman is doing great work. And it's entertaining if these are the kind of movies you like. So if you've seen Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead, and you love it, you probably love this movie too. So the final verdict. I want to say that this was a very entertaining movie. Like, I enjoyed myself the entire time. Now, it could have been the whole mystique of like seeing it at this drive-in and being part of Troma Dance, and maybe in a subsequent viewing I might find it a little less witty and maybe a little less entertaining, but from my experience there, it was just amazing. I liked it even more than their Return to Nukem High duology that they came out with earlier this decade. It seemed like it was closer to the Troma movies that I love from the past, like the early 2000s and also especially the 90s. Now, it's a movie that has some great practical effects, and it has a lead actor and director who's just giving it his all, and you can see the passion in the performance. And it is a literal geyser of crap from whale anuses. 2 thumbs up.